From fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Pod Therapy. Real people, real problems, real therapists. If you have a question to ask or advice you'd like to give, come on over to podtherapy.net and join the conversation. On today's episode, we promise we will not be talking about Simon and Garfunkel, because we've got too many other things to talk about. And now, broadcasting from Level 9 Studios, that guy is Dr. Jim Jobin. I'm Nick Tangeman. It's time for some Pod Therapy.
Did you like my sounds of silence? Did you get it?
I love the sounds of silence. As a matter of fact, that's what I was asking for last week on the podcast.
Was the sound of silence?
The sound of silence from Jim.
It didn't happen, Nick. It did not happen.
But that is a good reference. I'm surprised that you know that song.
See, I can name... I think that as a golden rule, you can count on me to name one hit song from almost every band. But only one. I've only got one.
We promised we weren't going to talk about Simon Garfunkel.
That's right.
And we made it about 15 seconds.
We made it. Yeah. I'm really proud of ourselves. That's 15 seconds longer. Actually, you opened with it.
You're right.
So I don't know that it was self-defeating, but we will pivot away. We will not talk about Simon and Garfunkel. Let's talk about something more uplifting, Nick. How was your weekend? What did you do this weekend?
It was good. It was good. Went to a movie. So Laura's a big fan of the Oscars.
Yeah, and for the listener, Laura's your girlfriend.
Correct.
Yeah.
And a big fan of movies in general.
Okay.
And so when the Oscars come out, all of the nominated movies go back out in the theater.
Yeah, and I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So when the Oscars are about to happen, those movies, they're available again in the theater.
Yes. I don't know if all of them are, but for the most part, a big chunk of them.
The big ones. Okay, the
they
best
go back
pictures
out.
and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh.
So we went out, and so we've seen a lot of the movies that were nominated.
Wow.
Yes.
That's really cool. Do you just watch them back to back? Do you guys like movie hop?
No. It's usually one per weekend.
Oh, okay.
So.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty cool that you can just go see movies. Do you want to know the last movie I saw in theaters? Lego
Cars.
Ninjago.
Oh, I was going to guess Cars 2.
Cars 3, and usually we wait for Netflix. But Lego Ninjago, that was the last movie. And before that, it was Moana. The Disney movie about the Hawaiian girl.
Nice.
So yeah, that's what we do. We go. It's very rare that we go see a movie because our kids don't let us do that. So yeah, we only see kids movies. But good for you, man, with the Oscars. So if you had gotten to give an Oscar out for Best Picture, what would your choice have been?
I think my favorite movie out of all of them that I saw was either Lady Bird.
Okay.
Which was really good.
So was Lady Bird? Lady Bird.
It
was about LBJ's wife?
No.
Oh. Yeah, I did not know that.
No.
I
has
really
nothing
came
to
on
do
the wrong
with
side of that one.
has nothing to do with LBJ.
Why not?
No, Lady Bird it's this story about this teenage girl in California and her relationship with her mother.
Oh, okay. Wow. I totally did not know that. I really thought it was a documentary.
No.
Wow.
No. But then the other one, Get Out, which was done by Jordan Peele.
Oh, that's right. I saw that Yeah. So on Twitter, I saw that he won, and it just had said, "Hey, Jordan Peele" or whatever, and it showed a picture. And I tweeted and said, "Congratulations, Tyler Perry," because he kind of looks like Tyler Perry. But then later I read the article, and it was like, "Hey, he's the first African American to win this award." I was like, "Oh, okay. I am definitely going to delete my comment because that is insensitive."
So you're going to delete your comment, but then say it here on our podcast.
Prove
okay.
it. Prove that it happened.
Jeez.
All evidence has been deleted. The internet doesn't count, Nick.
God. Okay.
The only people that listen to our podcast are people that can tolerate us, which means they're de facto loyal, and they're not going to send me up the river. So I'm going to be okay. The feds don't listen to this. I'll be all right.
All right. Send your mail to Jim. All right. Moving on. We actually have a lot to talk about today. We got a
lot of good questions been coming in.
A lot of really good questions. So let's just go ahead and get this show started.
Yes, sir.
All right.
My boyfriend has asked me to dress more modestly. I grew up in a small Mennonite town, and my family is Mennonite as well. Although once I moved out, I stopped practicing my religion. I met my boyfriend at a college party during my first year, and he came off as this super sweet Christian guy. He showed me the ropes in the big city. Anyway, we started dating, and he is big on making sure we're in an intentional relationship. He started talking to me about how I dress and has been having me read books and blogs on dressing modestly as a Christian woman. His reasons are as follows. 1, how I dress causes him to sin. 2, it causes other guys to look at me lustfully. And 3, I should be a, quote, Proverbs woman. I don't really want to dress modestly because I see no point in it, but I also want to take his opinions into consideration. What should I do? So, Nick, I'm sure you have strong opinions about this one. Oh, my
God.
Let's just uncork you and I'm just going to sip on my coffee, and whenever you pass out from exhaustion, I'll jump in.
Yeah, this frustrates me so much. It really does.
Let it out, baby.
Yeah. And I think it's not, yes, it frustrates me. I can feel my face getting a little red.
Can confirm
heated.
His face is red.
Right.
But this is, just so you know, Nick angry is not that much different than Nick reading a book. Let's find out.
You've never golfed with me.
That's true.
Here's the thing. I don't know how you're dressing now, but it doesn't really matter because, number one, okay, how I dress causes him to sin. Mm-hmm. That bothers me.
Okay.
He's not a puppet on a string.
Right.
Okay. You can't blame your own issues on somebody else.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The way you dress makes me do blank. No. That's not how human behavior works.
Make you do anything.
We are accountable for our own behaviors. He's not a puppet on a string. So number one, right off the bat, not an issue. Okay. Number 2, causes other guys to look at me lustfully. Not your problem.
Right.
It's that simple. Not your problem. Okay. And number 3, I should be a Proverbs woman.
Go for it, Nick.
No, here's the thing. Like, I can't judge that. That's up to you as an individual. But I guess here's the thing. Like, to the writer, what are you comfortable with? When you think of yourself as being a woman, what are you comfortable with? What makes you happy? And if dressing the way you do makes you happy, then do it. If no one's getting hurt, and I don't count sin as hurt, no one's getting hurt, just go for it. And if it causes problems with him, then he's now in a situation where he has to find a way to resolve those issues internally amongst himself, or maybe this relationship is not going to work and he needs to move on and he needs to find somebody else who has stuck in the Mennonite tradition. Yeah. It bothers me. I don't think that you should have to wear a beekeeper suit because somebody else, because they have lustful thoughts if they see you.
That's a good point.
That's a violation of basic human rights.
Well, oh boy, I don't know that I'd invoke the Geneva Convention, but I would say this. It's fascinating because we now live in this era where we have this conversation about slut shaming, right? And it's this outward criticism that used to be very permissible to tell women how to be, how to dress, and to invoke this idea that they are somehow responsible for the social reaction to that. And the kernel of this was a rape victim being blamed for the rape, right? Because it was like, well, what are you wearing? And I think collectively as a society, we have discarded that kind of thinking and said, hey, the fundamental problem was in the perpetrator. The fundamental problem was in the masculine mind and the behaviors associated, and it's not the fault of this person, no matter how they dress. They can't make anybody do anything. So I think to that extent, I think I agree. I think Nick's right. I don't want to see anybody get slut-shamed in this way, and I'm using that word, jovially here. Yay, slut. But actually, I'm going to take the other side of this issue from Nick, in a rare disagreement moment. So here's the thing that I read in this story, Nick. I met this guy at a college party during my first year. He came off as a super sweet Christian guy. So if we replaced that word Christian with Muslim, and it was, I used to be a Mennonite Christian, which is, for the listener, if you don't know that, it's kind of like Amish light. If you could think of like diet Amish, that's what Mennonitism is. They don't quite go with the primitiveness, but they sort of have that traditional value set. So if she would have said, I met this guy, he was a super sweet Muslim guy, and wouldn't you know it, he has Muslim beliefs, and he doesn't want me to dress in ways that offend his faith virtue and offend his worldview, and now we're finding ourselves in conflict. Golly, what should I do? And to me, that's sort of like an inherent question that you begged on yourself. You were attracted to his world view. Now, you yourself stopped practicing this religion, but he wore it on his sleeve on the very first encounter. He advertised, this is my worldview. You now dated that, and now his worldview is conflicting with certain things that you have a fundamental understanding are going to cause conflict. You're literate in religion. You're a Mennonite or a former one. So this is not a surprise. This didn't fall from the sky. So to me, some of this doesn't make sense. And when I read something like this, I kind of feel like she wants people to come to her aid and say, you know, you got to stand up to this guy. You can't be pushed around. Religion is, you know, domineering and patriarchal and women power. And sure, there's an entire social criticism to be had there. But these questions of like, this guy has a concept of sin and he associates that with a mutual attention. It's not just me and my relationship to my God. It's me and those I allow to surround myself and the way that they impact me, right? And so like, I think that that's a fair criticism. She understands the language he's using. And whenever he says, you know, I don't like how other guys are looking at you, religion aside, I think that's a normal male posture. I think any red-blooded American male, if they're dating a female who is outwardly sexually provocative in his estimation, whatever that means, I could see any normal guy over coffee saying, hey, we're in a pretty serious relationship. This is something that bothers me. I'm communicating that. And so, like, I don't find necessarily any fault with that. Religion aside, I think that's a fair criticism. Now, the last bit where she says he wants me to be a Proverbs woman, Nick, I'm sure you caught the reference to Proverbs chapter 31.
31.
Yeah, very good. Yeah,
yes.
So yeah, Proverbs 31 talks about...
I also know Matthew 5:27 as far as the looking lustfully on a woman.
Look at you.
Yes.
You're a Bible scholar. So Proverbs 31 talks about a virtuous woman and a woman who, you know, is sort of modest and kind of has this different kind of worldview and focus. And so clearly he's invoking that. The fundamental issue to me is, should you be dating somebody in a religion that you do not practice? Is that going to cause a fundamental worldview difference? Clearly, we're starting to see that happen. And so for me, if this was my patient, this female, the question I'd be asking as a therapist is, why did you want to date a sweet Christian guy? Is this nostalgic for you? Is it comforting for you because you understand his worldview? Is there something comforting because he's predictable and you know the lexicon that he thinks with? And if that's what's valuable to you is that you understand how he thinks, I don't think you also get to feign shock whenever, you know, his predictable worldview clashes with the way you're living.
Okay. Now, however, sweet Christian guy, that's a pretty wide range.
Sure.
I think you would be willing to concede that just because someone is a Christian, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to have specific beliefs about dress codes and all that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So we could argue the other side that, you know, maybe she didn't really know what she was getting into. But in either case, I guess, okay, if we were to remove the religious aspect completely,
right?
If, let's say, I didn't like the way that guys were looking at my girlfriend.
Right.
If it had something to do with the way that she dressed, I would, you know, talk to her about that and say, hey, look, you know, the way that you dress, it kind of draws a lot of attention and it bothers me. All right. But I would still keep the focus on it bothers me.
Ah, I see.
Okay.
I see.
And if she chooses to then say, oh, well, you know what? I really care about you. I care about your opinion. If it makes you feel better, if I dress differently, I'm willing to make that change.
Yeah.
Awesome. However, if she says, well, you know what? I like the way that I dress, and I'm sorry that this bothers you, it's still on me. Like, that is my burden to overcome. If it's not right for me to say, Jim, you know, there's something about your face.
Yeah, that bothers me.
It bothers me.
Do something about it.
You're a good person.
But that face.
But
it's got to change,
I
Jim.
need you to wear this paper sack over your head.
Right, with this happy face drawn on it.
Right.
Right. Yeah, I see your point.
Not your burden. That's my issue. I have to overcome that.
So back to the writer, I guess our advice is this. It's clear that there is an impasse because you clearly articulate, I don't want to change how I dress. And religion aside, I could sum up all this guy's criticisms as, girlfriend, the way you dress makes me feel uncomfortable. And that's him owning his side of the